If your child's refusing to go to school and you're being told it's just bad behaviour, defiance, laziness, I want you to know school refusal is never about just not wanting to go. It's a signal. And once we understand why, everything changes. I've been a school guidance officer for 12 years. I've worked with hundreds of families with chronic school attendance issues because of school distress. Just the other week I was working with a Year 9 student in an enrolment meeting. He hadn't been to school since grade 5. His mother said she just felt completely invisible and no one would help them. I know, schools don't always get it right, but with the right understanding, they can. Often parents are just desperate for someone to look past that bad behaviour and see what's really going on. This video is going to help understand the deeper needs behind the school refusal and help you clearly and calmly advocate for support that fits. There's no single reason why kids school refuse, a simple checkbox that explains every case. But in my work, these 7 reasons come up again and again. And for many kids, several of them actually overlap. Number 1, they feel unsafe. This could be physical safety, like bullying or being hurt in the playground, but often it's the emotional safety. Maybe they've been called out or shamed in class. Maybe they fear being laughed at. Or maybe they've learnt that making mistakes leads to punishment or public embarrassment. Some kids have sensory sensitivities or even a past trauma that schools unknowingly trigger. Loud bells, crowded spaces, adults that raise their voice. For some kids, school doesn't feel like learning, it feels like survival. What to ask for? A calm, low-pressure start to the day. One consistent, safe adult. Clear plans of how to respond to emotional distress. Number 2, they feel like they don't belong. Belonging's not just about feeling included. It's about actually being wanted. It's about walking into a space and feeling like your presence actually matters, like people have your back. And when kids don't feel like that, they stop showing up. Not because they don't care, it's because continuing to try hurts too much. This might look like a child who's always on the edge of a friendship group, a teen who says, "If I didn't show up, no one would even notice." A young person who avoids the playground or group activities, or a high achiever who hides how disconnected they really feel. It's not always bullying, but it can be part of the picture. Sometimes it's just feeling overlooked and misunderstood. What you can advocate for. Ask the school, how are you helping my child build real connections? Do they have a role in the class that gives them purpose? Is there at least one adult that really knows them? Not just academically, but personally. Because belonging, it doesn't just come from proximity. It comes from relationships, recognition, and responsibility. Number 3, they don't feel competent. Some kids are living in constant fear of failure. Maybe they've fallen behind in reading and maths. Maybe they've never quite caught up after being sick for a while. Maybe they've been disengaged for years and it's finally catching up with them. For these kids, every task feels like a threat. Not because they're lazy, but they've learnt over time that trying just proves that they really can't do it. And the heartbreaking part is, most of these kids want to learn, but they're so filled with shame that just refusing feels safer. What helps? Scaffolded tasks, trauma-aware academic planning, praise for effort and emotional regulation, not just getting everything right. Number 4, they're exhausted. Let's start here. Even your average neurotypical child is often exhausted by school. Long days, high expectations, busy classrooms, constant transitions. having to sit still when they need to move. Add in assessments, homework, friendship drama, and it's a lot. Now layer in ADHD, sensory sensitivity, anxiety or trauma. These kids aren't just tired, they're burnt out. They're holding it together all day and melting down at home, or they're shutting down at school and no one's even noticing. And because they're not doing anything wrong, their exhaustion gets missed until they stop showing up. What support might look like: adjusted timetables, scheduled quiet breaks, sensory regulation built into their day, reduce academic load in high stress periods. Number 5, they don't feel seen or understood. This is the child that's been written off as difficult when maybe they're just overwhelmed. Maybe they go silent when they're anxious. Maybe they lash out when they're feeling misunderstood. Or maybe they're masking all day and the school just sees this compliant child when home sees the aftermath. When kids are in distress, they don't always have the words. That's why we need to stop asking what's wrong with them and start asking what's happening underneath. We need to play detective and find out the full story. As a parent, you can say, we're seeing a big shift at home. Tears, shutdowns, sensory overloads. I think there's more going on than what the school's seeing in the classroom. Number 6, school feels pointless. Let's be honest. For some kids, school feels like a place of correction, no wins, nothing they care about. They're not seen for their strengths. They're not doing anything that lights them up. And they've learnt that the only way to succeed is to conform, mask, or be silent. That's not motivation. That's learnt helplessness. And what might help? Real-world learning tasks, passion-based assignments, giving the child a role that says, you matter here. Adjusting the goals to make sure they can actually achieve success. Number 7, home feels safer. This one's important and misunderstood. Some kids just feel more regulated at home. At school, the lights are fluorescent and gross. The noise is constant. The rules are many and the expectations are high. At home, there's emotional safety, co-regulation, flexibility, and rest. They're not refusing school because they want to stay home and play the Xbox. They're refusing school because their nervous system is saying, I feel safer here. We can't exactly make home like school, but we can build relational safety, provide predictability, meet sensory needs, create space for recovery and transition. Parents often come to me saying, I just don't know what to ask for, or my child won't say anything at home and the school says when they're there, they're fine. But here's the thing. Sometimes a young person won't speak up. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes they genuinely don't know how to explain what's going on the inside. That doesn't mean the distress isn't real. And it doesn't mean that you can't advocate hard for them. You don't need a perfect explanation. You don't need your child to speak up yet. You can start by what you're observing, what your gut is telling you, and what you're seeing at home. Your role is to try and translate what your child's behaviour is trying to say. And if that feels too hard, that's where we come in. At the Guided Path, we help families make sense of what's going on, especially when the picture's really complex. I know how quickly kids get misunderstood by school staff, especially when their distress shows up as silence, shutdowns, or even defiance. We complete full, individualised assessments that look at the whole child, not just their diagnosis or attendance. We look at emotional safety, sensory load, nervous system regulation, triggers, learning fatigue, and what actually motivates them and lights the young person up. And then we create plans that schools can actually use. I've seen too many plans that psychologists or medical professionals have created that just won't work in the real world. Not with the way that schools operate. We speak the school's language. If you want help unpacking what's really behind your child's school refusal, or you're tired of just having to explain it over and over again, book a free discovery call below, or grab my free NDIS guide if you're just starting the process. You're not alone, and you don't have to figure this out on your own. I'll see you in the next video.